From time to time, we all experience some clarity. Yes? And the point I'm trying to make to you is at any moment, these four forces are constantly shaping and reshaping who we are. The story I told you about that guy, his old self came back, bullshit. There never was a self to begin with. There was just these different forces pulling at him in different proportions, in different sequence, in different degrees of intensity, producing his ongoing sense of a self. But there really was no self there. It's just the ongoing flow of these forces, constantly tugging and changing how we define and how we experience life. Does that make sense? Yes. Now, here's what I want you to get. Every human being goes through it. Every human, old, young, from the moment we're born to the moment we draw our last breath, these four forces are constantly shaping and reshaping who we are. And I'll tell you something else. The same source that is constantly tugging at all of reality, reshaping it. My belief is not only is that there is no self, but there is no steady, constant reality. My belief is that we are constantly being taken in and putting back. We are constantly being taken out and being put back in increments of speed that are too fast for us to observe and in increments of time that are too short for us to perceive. So the perception is that it's steady and constant. The perception is that we have a self, we wake up, we go through our day with this constant, steady self that has a series of experiences, but I believe it's an illusion. So if you can really get this sort of idea that we're all constantly in the same condition, we all came in the same way, we're all going to go out, and at every moment, we're constantly being taken out and put back into reality by these four forces. You begin to get compassion for people. Now here's what I don't mean. Look up here. Look up here. By compassion, I don't mean a Hallmark greeting card, right? I don't mean some syrupy, corny, the beautiful flowing white light of Jesus is gushing from your heart, enveloping everyone in love, 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 new age, tofu sucking, steak avoiding, don't eat meat love. I don't mean that. To me, compassion is a simple perception. It's a very simple, non-emotional, very subtle perception that somewhere in the back of your mind you hold that we are all sharing the same fundamental condition. Anymore, when I walk into a group setting, any kind of group venue, before I walk in, I take a breath and I imagine every person in that room, male, female, attractive, unattractive, I imagine their hearts are all beating. And I imagine a pair of hands that's constantly tugging and pulling them in four different ways. And I say to myself, they're being, not only are in the same condition as I am, the same hands are constantly shaping the clay of their reality and my reality. And that separateness, when you look at people that way, separateness is an illusion. Now, here's the thing you have to get. When it comes to being effective with people, you have to sort of wear bifocals. You have to be able to look at people from that perspective, from the compassionate perspective that says, yes, we're all in the same condition. And then you also have to be able to look at yourself as being separate. The name of the game is not looking at everything as being in union or as looking at everything being separate. The name of the game is freedom and choice. So if somewhere humming in the background of your mind when you're going to attract, when you're going to seduce, if somewhere in the very background, in a very subtle level, you can just hold the thought that we're all in the same condition, then how can you be afraid of someone who's being created by the same thing as you are every moment? How can you feel separate or afraid of someone who's being produced by the same fundamental forces, who's being upheld at every moment by the same thing that's upholding you? How can you be afraid or feel separate from someone when you see them as fundamentally being produced by the same thing as you are? I challenge you to feel afraid if that's how you view people. It becomes impossible. You can't, because you get that fundamentally we really are not separate from each other. I believe there's two ways to look at human beings. Each can be valid from its own framework. By the way, who knows something at all about physics? I don't mean like quantum psychology physics that you read in the back of your weekly throwaway newspaper. I mean the real thing. Who here knows anything about Newton's laws of motion? Anybody? Right? You can use Newton's laws of motion to predict the path of an artillery shell, correct?
Yes.
Even though Einstein came along, Newton's laws of motion, do they work at speeds approaching the speed of light? No, they don't. Do they work at subatomic levels to predict quantum events? Can you predict quantum events or describe them using Newton's laws of motion? I can't hear you. No. Does that mean that they're completely invalid? From a certain frame of reference, they work. Even though Einstein came along, you can still use Newton's laws to accurately predict the path of a bullet. True or false? So depending on your frame of reference, they're true or not true. They're usable or not usable. I believe there's two ways to look at human beings. You can look at humans as basically bags of chemicals. We're basically chemical, biological machines. We're moving through a cause and effect world. Time flows in a linear fashion, past, present, and future. Yes? We're all separate from each other. That can be a useful perspective. When you go to do your taxes, you have to view yourself as a separate thing, and you better view yourself that way. Yeah? God forbid, if any of you ever gets into a car accident, cracks up on the M5 motorway, you don't want them to rush you to a Chinese herbalist, right? Or an acupuncturist. I want to be taken to the best Western trauma clinic to have them pump me full of blood and reset my bones and do whatever they need to do. However, there's another view of humans that says, fundamentally, you can view humans as patterns of information. Yes? That, in fact, the future can influence the past, that time can flow in a lot of different directions, that we're always connected with each other anyway, that information can travel, information located without ever actually having to travel. You understand? You can look at humans in either of those two ways. So the language patterns that I'm giving you, that's sort of like the more cause and effect level. But this energetic stuff I'm giving you is looking at people from a totally different perspective. Which one is right? Which one works? They both do according to how you view people. Does that make sense? But here's the thing. This stuff I'm giving you trumps all the language patterns. If you can get the vibe down right, if you can learn to walk through uncertainty without fearing that uncertainty, if you can learn to have equanimity for the things that trouble other people and stop them, if you can learn to have a good learning strategy so all that rumination shuts down. By the way, how many guys here think that that beautiful girl ruminates in her head about something? Raise your hand. I can guarantee you that that super hot woman is ruminating about something. It could be about some guy she was involved with 5 years ago. When you walk through the world quiet, where other people are noisy, when you walk through the world unafraid to step into the unknown, and you give other people radical permission to have their first response to you, that is so unusually sexy that women can't even put their finger on the source of their excitement as to why they're excited. Do you understand? There's no one can ever amog you out of that. No one can ever, they can't. No one can ever blow you out of the set because your whole world is your set. Do you understand? It's undetectable. I'll tell you something else. It's actually more acceptable to women. Because when you're super cocky and super smooth and super slick, women don't trust it. That kind of alpha, sure, it may be sexy, but on the other hand, it's a little scary. Like, what is this guy, a professional seducer? Well, yeah, kind of. You understand? It's frightening. But the kind of stealth charisma I'm teaching you, it's not frightening because it has nothing to do with being slick. Does that make sense? Yes, James. My champion seducer, James.
That's what I'm actually learning at the moment, is just to go in with the attitude, let's go and see. Like, I've got the most amazing responses I've ever had from just having that attitude.
The attitude of, I want you guys to join the Let's See What Happens club instead of the What the Fuck Just Happened club. Yes?
It's like differentiation between like approval seeking and actually I'm comfortable with myself.
Beautiful, beautiful. James just said, It's this distinction between seeking approval or validation and just being comfortable with the process. Here's the thing I want you guys to get. People entangle. So let's say this is your raw lust for a woman, raw lust. Very few guys experience pure, 100% raw desire for a woman. They entangle it with a need for validation. Yes? How many people feel they need to be validated by beautiful women accepting them? Raise your hand, you fucking liars. Okay, anyone who's not raising their hand is either a liar or delusional, or they should teach this class. Or they're gay. Right. Or a combination of all of these options, okay? So most guys entangle their raw lust with the need for validation, and they entangle it with anxiety. A lot of guys are carrying a lot of resentment. Am I right or am I wrong?
You're right.
Am I right?
Yes.
I'm willing to bet part of your problem is that you've never experienced pure desire for women. Part of your problem is you've never approached a woman out of pure, raw, unadulterated lust. That entangled with it is the need to be validated, anxiety, resentment. Actually, if you really want to know a secret, nothing is more exciting to a woman than pure, raw, unadulterated male lust, male desire, when it's not entangled with all this stuff. When it's not entangled with ego, God, that's not difficult to do. When it's not entangled with the need for validation, when it's not entangled with resentment or the need for, or ego-driven, it's actually really sexy.